Indiana now has the worst foreclosure rate of any state in America. 1 in every 739 homes has a foreclosure filing on it. That is 64% worse than the national average. Indiana was built on the promise of honest work. Steel in Gary, cars in Kokomo, finance in Indianapolis. The kind of state where a factory job could buy you a house. And a house was the one thing you could always count on. But here is what they are not telling you. Today, we count down the 10 Indiana cities where the foreclosure crisis is hitting hardest. And the reason so many longtime homeowners are losing their homes may change everything you thought you knew about owning a house in America. Subscribe now so you never miss the next housing warning. Drive into Kokomo on a Tuesday morning, and it looks like a city that held on. Brick storefronts along the main strip. American flags on front porches. Wide streets built for shift changes. There is a quiet here that feels earned, the Midwest version of keeping your head down and making it work. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana now has the worst foreclosure rate of any state in America. 1 in every 739 homes across this state has a foreclosure filing on it. That is 64% worse than the national average according to Adams' first quarter of 2026 foreclosure market report. Kokomo, a city that invented the first American pneumatic tire, and the first push-button car radio, is now part of that number. The mortgage is not what is breaking people here. According to housing advocates cited by Indiana public media, rising home insurance premiums and property tax reassessments are pushing monthly escrow payments hundreds of dollars higher than what buyers signed for. The transmission plants are still running. The paychecks stopped keeping up. A growing number of Kokomo homeowners report that their total monthly payment has increased by $300 to $500 since closing with no change in their interest rate. Some bought in 2021. Others have been in their homes for 12 years. The escrow bill does not distinguish between them. If you bought in Kokomo in 2022, here is what happened to your money. According to Redfin's data, the median sale price in Kokomo is currently around $142,000, down 11.3% from a year ago. But the price drop is not the main story. The monthly cost of carrying that home has gone up by $300 to $500 since closing through insurance and property tax increases that compound every year. The value on paper barely changed. The bill arriving every month absolutely did. When Stellantis cuts another shift at the transmission plant, what exactly do you think happens to home values on the east side of town? But Kokomo is just the beginning. Because what is happening to the industrial backbone of Indiana runs even deeper than one city. Pull off Interstate 69 into Anderson, and the history of the place is visible on every block. Factory buildings the size of city blocks, some converted, most just sitting. Wide streets designed for shift changes that ended 30 years ago. Anderson was a backbone city of American manufacturing. It still looks the part. The jobs went elsewhere. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana holds the #1 spot for the worst foreclosure rate in the country. 1 in every 739 homes. That is the atom figure for the first quarter of 2026. In Madison County, where General Motors closed its last major plant decades ago, the financial margins for homeowners have been razor thin for a long time. Now those margins are gone. The root cause in Anderson is escrow shock hitting people who are already running close to zero. According to Indiana public media's coverage of the Atom data, property tax assessments and insurance premium increases are the primary drivers of Indiana's foreclosure surge, not rate resets, not subprime loans. For retired manufacturing workers on pensions and Social Security, a $300 jump in monthly escrow is not an inconvenience. It is a foreclosure unfolding in slow motion. Data gathered by Fair Housing of Central Indiana indicates a substantial number of foreclosures across the state are coming from people who have owned their homes for 10 years or more. Anderson has those homeowners, people who survived the GM exit, who held on through every economic dip, who thought they had finally outlasted the hard part. They did not outlast the escrow bill. If you bought in Anderson in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The median home price in Anderson is currently around $155,000, roughly where it was when you signed, maybe slightly higher. The house held its value. The cost of owning it did not. Insurance premiums, property tax reassessments, and escrow adjustments have pushed the total monthly payment $300 to $500 higher than the original disclosure showed. You did not lose the house on paper. You are losing the ability to pay for it every single month. You stayed in Anderson when GM left. You bought a house and decided to make it work. If your escrow just went up $300 a month, how long can you keep making it work? Muncie in the fall feels like a city with two personalities that never fully introduced themselves to each other. Near Ball State, there are coffee shops and game day energy and the sense that something is happening. Drive 10 minutes from campus in any direction, and you are in a different place. Older homes, quieter streets, a housing stock built for workers who are mostly gone now. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana is the worst foreclosure state in America. 1 in every 739 homes, verified by Adams' first quarter of 2026 report. In Muncie, a city where the university provides a heartbeat but does not raise the median income of the surrounding neighborhoods, that statewide number is not abstract. It is showing up at the courthouse. The crisis in Muncie runs in two lanes at once. For longtime working-class homeowners, teachers, retirees, tradespeople on the west side, it is escrow shock. Property taxes and insurance are up. The mortgage rate has not moved. According to Indiana Public Media, those rising costs are the primary driver of foreclosures across the state. For investors who bought near Ball State to run rentals, the problem is different. But the outcome is the same. Cap rates that looked reasonable in 2021 no longer cover the actual cost of ownership. A growing number of Muncie homeowners report payment increases of $300 to $500 per month, with no change in their interest rate. Some have been in their homes since the early 2000s. Others bought during the pandemic, drawn in by prices that looked affordable by national standards. Affordable by national standards does not mean survivable when the escrow bill rewrites itself every January. If you bought in Muncie in 2022, here is what happened to your money. Median home prices in Muncie are currently around $125,000 modest by any national measure. But modest prices do not mean manageable carrying costs when insurance and property taxes are climbing at the same rate as they are in Indianapolis or Evansville. A $300 monthly escrow increase on a $125,000 home represents a far larger percentage of that asset's carrying cost than the same increase on a $400,000 property. In Muncie, the math is less forgiving, not more. You bought near Ball State because it felt like a safe bet. What happens to that bet when enrollment drops and the city's foreclosure rate keeps climbing? Terre Haute sits at the crossroads of two major interstates in western Indiana, close enough to Illinois that you can feel both states in the air. The city built itself around movement freight logistics supply chain. During the pandemic, this was essential America. Signs in the windows said so. The work did not slow down. The raise never arrived. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana now leads the entire nation in foreclosure filings. 1 in every 739 homes. That is Adams' number for the first quarter of 2026, and it is the worst rate of any state in America. Terre Haute is a logistics hub, but it is also a city where median income has long trailed the state average. The essential workers got the applause. The escrow adjustment came later. According to a February 2026 report from CNBC, incomes would need to rise by nearly $50,000 for a median-priced home to be as affordable as it was in 2019. In Terre Haute, that is not a distant policy problem. It is the reason warehouse supervisors who bought homes in 2021 are now struggling to keep them. 3 consecutive years of property tax and insurance increases with no corresponding wage increase produce a predictable result. A growing number of Terre Haute homeowners report that their monthly housing costs have risen by $300 to $500 since they signed entirely through escrow adjustments. These are the people who kept the supply chain moving through a global pandemic. They are now watching their housing situation move in a direction nobody planned for. If you bought in Terre Haute in 2021, here is what happened to your money. Median home prices in Terre Haute are currently around $173,000 a number that has held relatively steady. But according to a February 2026 report from CNBC, incomes would need to rise by nearly $50,000 for a median-priced home to be as affordable as it was in 2019. In Terre Haute, where logistics wages have not made that kind of jump, the gap between what the house is worth and what it costs to stay in it gets wider every January when the escrow statement arrives. Your warehouse job kept this country supplied through a pandemic. Nobody adjusted your paycheck to match what your property tax bill is doing. How long before that stops working? On a football Saturday. South Bend is one of the loudest places in America. 90,000 people fill Notre Dame Stadium. The gold dome catches the light over the tree line. The tailgates stretch for half a mile. For those few hours, it is hard to look at South Bend and think anything here is fragile. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana has the worst foreclosure filing rate of all 50 states. 1 in every 739 homes, that is the atom first quarter of 2026 figure. The university has an endowment valued in the tens of billions of dollars. The homeowners on the south side of town, the ones who have been there since long before NBC started broadcasting the games, do not have an endowment. They have an escrow bill that went up again. South Bend's housing market is a study in contrast. Near campus, prices are holding. Farther out in the neighborhoods that never benefited from the Notre Dame economic halo, working-class homeowners are facing the same escrow shock hitting the rest of Indiana. According to housing advocates cited by Indiana public media, property tax reassessments and insurance premium increases are the primary driver of the state's foreclosure surge. Not unemployment, not subprime. The bill just kept getting bigger. Data gathered by Fair Housing of Central Indiana shows that a substantial number of foreclosures statewide are coming from long-term homeowners, people who have been in their homes for 10 years or more. South Bend has those homeowners. They watched the city get credit for a revitalization that mostly benefited downtown. Their escrow bill went up all the same. If you bought in South Bend in 2022, here is what happened to your money. Median home prices in South Bend are currently around $184,000, up 11.4% from a year ago, according to Redfin's May 2026 data. On paper, that looks like equity. But equity you cannot access does not pay the insurance bill. And in Indiana's foreclosure environment, the homeowners losing their houses are not always the ones who bought wrong. According to Fair Housing of Central Indiana, a substantial number of foreclosures are coming from people who have owned their homes for 10 years or more. Equity and affordability are not the same thing. Notre Dame fills that stadium with 90,000 people every Saturday. How many of them are going to buy your house when you need to sell? If this is hitting close to home, hit subscribe. We cover these markets every week, so you can stay ahead of what is coming. Stand at the right intersection in Hammond, and you can see the Chicago skyline on the horizon. That view is the whole pitch. Hammond sits 12 miles from the loop, close enough to commute far enough that the price tag looks completely different. People moved here to get out from under Chicago rent. They signed Indiana mortgages. Deadpan. They thought they had found the exit. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana now holds the worst foreclosure rate of all 50 states. 1 in every 739 homes, that is Adams' verified number for the first quarter of 2026. In Lake County, where Hammond sits, the calculation that made this move make sense was built on one assumption: the ability to earn Chicago wages while paying Indiana housing costs. When that assumption changed, the math broke. The remote work window that made Hammond attractive to Chicago earners has been closing. Return-to-office mandates pushed commute costs back up. At the same time, Indiana's escrow shock hit Lake County the same way it hit the rest of the state: insurance premiums up, property taxes up, monthly payments quietly climbing hundreds of dollars beyond what buyers expected. A growing number of Hammond homeowners report finding themselves caught between two cities. The Chicago income is not coming back in full. The Indiana bill is not going back down. That is not a temporary squeeze. That is a structural problem with no obvious exit. If you bought in Hammond in 2021, here is what happened to your money. Median home prices in Hammond are currently around $185,000, according to Redfin data. The house is worth roughly what you paid. The problem is, the Chicago income that was supposed to service that mortgage has gotten less reliable, and the Indiana escrow bill has gotten more expensive. Two things moving in opposite directions at the same time is not a temporary cash flow problem. It is the setup for a foreclosure filing. You moved to Hammond to escape Chicago prices, but you still need the Chicago job. When the return to office mandate comes down and the commute is back 5 days a week, what exactly is your exit plan? There is no gentle way to drive into Gary. The steel mills appear, first massive structures along the lake, some still running, most scaled back, all of them reminders of what this city used to mean to America. Gary once held nearly 180,000 people. It built steel that built the country. What remains today is a fraction of that, a city of neighborhoods that are emptying faster than anyone knows how to stop. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana carries the worst foreclosure rate of any state in America. 1 in every 739 homes, the atom first quarter of 2026 figure. In Gary, the foreclosure crisis did not start in 2026. It has been running for decades. What has changed is that the investors and bargain hunters who arrived over the past 5 years, drawn in by prices that seemed impossible anywhere else, are now discovering why those prices were impossible anywhere else. The insurance market in Gary reflects what the broader market already knows. High vacancy rates push premiums up sharply. According to Indiana Public Media's reporting on Indiana's foreclosure surge, escrow costs, insurance, and property taxes combined are the primary driver of filings statewide. In Gary, where insurance costs are already elevated before the surges, that driver hits harder than almost anywhere in the state. A growing number of Gary buyers who purchased in the last 5 years report that their carrying costs now exceed any realistic rental income the property could generate. The numbers that made the investment look attractive on a spreadsheet do not survive contact with the actual insurance quote. If you bought in Gary in 2021, here is what happened to your money. Zillow's current data puts the typical Gary home value at around $69,000. Redfin's median sale price runs higher around $125,000, reflecting the gap between what sits on the market and what actually sells. Either way, the exit is the problem. Selling a distressed property in a high vacancy market requires a buyer willing to absorb the same insurance costs and carrying expenses that are pushing the current owner toward foreclosure. In Gary, liquidity is not a given. And a home you cannot sell is not an asset. It is a liability with a monthly payment attached. You bought a house in Gary because the price looked too good to pass up. What is the actual cost of owning a property that nobody else wants to buy? Gary is a city the rest of America already wrote off. But the next city on our list is not a city anyone expected to see here. Fort Wayne is the kind of Midwest city that functional Midwest cities are supposed to be. Second largest in Indiana. A real downtown that has actually recovered. Corporate headquarters, a growing healthcare sector, neighborhoods with actual trees. If you were designing a mid-size American city that works, Fort Wayne is close to the template. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. Indiana is the #1 foreclosure state in America, 1 in every 739 homes, according to Adams' first quarter of 2026 report. Fort Wayne sits in Allen County, and Allen County has seen property tax reassessments 3 times in 4 years. The median home in Fort Wayne sells for $225,000 right now, according to Redfin's May 2026 data. That price sounds affordable until you add the tax bill. According to housing advocates cited by Indiana Public Media, property tax reassessments and insurance premium increases are the primary driver of Indiana's foreclosure crisis, not job losses, not adjustable rates. Fort Wayne's reassessments have pushed escrow payments up consistently, and in a city where the median income reflects manufacturing and logistics wages, rather than tech salaries. The margin between making it work and not making it work is measured in hundreds of dollars per month. A growing number of Fort Wayne homeowners who bought in 2021 and 2022 report that their monthly payment has grown by $300 to $500 all through the escrow line. The mortgage is the same. The total bill is not. If you bought in Fort Wayne in 2022, here is what happened to your money. The median sale price in Fort Wayne is currently $225,000. According to Redfin's May 2026 data, up 2.2% from last year. Prices are holding, but holding prices and a manageable monthly payment are two different things. According to Indiana Public Media, rising property tax assessments and insurance premiums are the primary driver of Indiana's foreclosure surge. In Allen County, 3 rounds of reassessment in 4 years have rewritten the escrow math for thousands of homeowners whose mortgage rate never moved a single basis point. Allen County just reassessed your property value, which means your tax bill is going up again. That is the 3rd time in 4 years. At what point does affordable stop being affordable? Evansville is where the Ohio River bends through southwestern Indiana, close enough to Kentucky and Illinois that the city feels like it belongs to all 3 states, and none of them. It is a regional hub, hospitals, manufacturing, distribution, the kind of city that holds the surrounding area together without ever making national headlines. It just made one, but here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. According to Adams' first quarter of 2026 foreclosure market report, as cited by WFYI Public Radio, Evansville ranked 4th worst among all major American cities, with populations over 200,000 for foreclosure rates. Not 4th in Indiana, not 4th in the Midwest, 4th in the entire United States of America. 2 cities in the same state, both in the top 4 in the country. That is not a coincidence. The drivers in Evansville mirror the rest of Indiana escrow shock, from insurance premiums and property tax reassessments, pushing monthly payments far beyond what buyers expected when they signed. According to Indiana Public Media, rising escrow costs are the primary mechanism behind Indiana's statewide foreclosure surge, and Vanderburgh County has not been spared. Healthcare workers and manufacturing employees who bought homes in the 2021 and 2022 boom are now carrying payments they cannot sustain. A growing number of Evansville homeowners report monthly payment increases of $300 to $500, with no change to their interest rate. The mortgage stayed the same. The escrow rewrote itself. The difference is what is generating the 4th worst foreclosure rate of any major American city. If you bought in Evansville in 2022, here is what happened to your money. According to Redfin data, the Evansville median sale price in late 2025 ran around $151,000, down 8.6% from the year prior. Zillow's average home value currently sits higher, around $181,000. The gap between those two numbers reflects a market under pressure, where what sellers hope to get and what buyers are willing to pay are moving further apart. Meanwhile, Evansville has the 4th worst foreclosure filing rate of any major American city. The market is not recovering fast enough to outrun the bills. Evansville is ranked 4th worst in the entire country for foreclosure rates. Your neighbors are losing their homes. What do you think that is doing to the value of yours? Evansville is 4th worst in the nation. But there is one Indiana city that ranks even higher, and it is the one city in this state that was supposed to represent everything going right. Indianapolis is the success story Indiana tells the world. The Speedway, the Pacers, and the Colts. Eli Lilly's global headquarters. A tech corridor that has been expanding for years. A downtown that actually draws people on weeknights. Indianapolis was supposed to be proof that the Midwest still works, that you can build something real here without the coasts. But here is what the real estate agents are not showing you. According to Adams' first quarter of 2026 foreclosure market report, as cited by WFYI Public Radio, Indianapolis ranked 3rd worst among all major American cities, with populations over 200,000 for foreclosure filing rates. 3rd in the country. right behind two cities far better known for housing crises than Indianapolis has ever been. 1 in every 739 homes across Indiana has a foreclosure filing. Indianapolis alone accounts for more than half of those statewide totals. The city generating the most economic momentum in Indiana is simultaneously generating the most foreclosures. The reason is not complicated. According to data gathered by Fair Housing of Central Indiana, a substantial number of Indiana's foreclosures are coming from people who have owned their homes for 10 years or more. Not reckless buyers, not speculators who overpaid at the peak, long-term owners, people who did everything right. Rising property tax assessments and insurance premiums have pushed their monthly escrow payments hundreds of dollars higher than they budgeted for. And in a city where the median income does not accommodate that kind of surprise, the result is predictable. Here is what happened to the money. According to the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors, the median sale price in the Indianapolis metro reached approximately $290,000 to $305,000 in 2022 and 2023. According to Redfin's May 2026 data, the median sale price in Indianapolis today is $255,000. That is a paper loss of roughly $35,000 to $50,000 on a home you are still paying a 2022 mortgage on with a 2026 escrow that is $300 to $500 higher per month than you anticipated at closing. Indianapolis is a growing city, population up, companies moving in, the economic indicators are pointing the right direction. If all of that is true, why does Indianapolis have the third worst foreclosure rate of any major American city in America right now? From the transmission plants of Kokomo to the Ohio River Port in Evansville. From the Notre Dame Stadium, lights in South Bend, to the steel structures along the Gary Lakefront that have not run at full capacity in 30 years. 10 cities, one pattern. The cost of owning a home in Indiana is rising faster than the income of the person who owns it. The mortgage did not change. The escrow did. Insurance went up, property taxes went up. And somewhere between the rate that looked manageable at signing and the bill that arrives every month now, the math stopped working. That is what 1 in every 739 homes looks like on the ground. Here is what makes Indiana different from every other housing crisis story you have heard. There was no bubble here, no speculative frenzy, no wave of investors flipping properties at triple the assessed value. Indiana homeowners bought modestly, worked steadily, stayed put. Some of them stayed for 10 years, 20 years, and are still losing their homes. Not because they were reckless, because the system built the cost increases into the ownership model, and nobody told them at closing. The worst foreclosure rate in America does not belong to Florida. It does not belong to Nevada. It belongs to Indiana. And the people losing those homes did everything they were told to do. The warning signs were always there. The question is, were you watching? This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or real estate advice. Always consult a licensed professional before making any investment decisions. Subscribe, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and drop your city in the comments below.